just last night I held a gathering in Salinas, and I was describing my journey up the mountain to Kedarnath, which is a holy temple in the Himalayan mountains in honor of Shiva. Call him Lord Shiva or Mahadev. That's their Hindu representation of the great god, Shiva. He usually wears a snake around his neck, showing that he's overcome all fear. And he's depicted always kind of in meditation, kind of like this, you know? Always in meditation. So deep in meditation, it's hard to even wake him up. So I traveled, I probably walked something like 15 miles up the mountain to get to Kedarnath temple. It's very remote. Thousands of pilgrims every day go up to see Kedarnath, at least when it's not heavily snowing. And I just remember this journey of going to see Lord Shiva at Kedarnath, and how when I first arrived, I needed a place to sleep for the night before I headed up, because you're supposed to start your journey maybe around 3:30 a.m. or so. So just to make sure you got there, the top, that you can make it by the end of the day. So, I was looking around thinking, in the US, there's hotel rooms everywhere. We're so spoiled. You get up to the area of Kedarnath and there's nothing. There's not even electricity. And it's cold. So you know what I did? They had these big garages, probably a garage that's, I don't know, maybe about a third of this size, this particular room here. And I went in there and brought my sleeping bag, and all I had was a backpack and my sleeping bag, and I sat amongst probably 30 people in that room, underneath these neon lights, and there was a guy smoking in the corner of the room. I said, I guess I'm sleeping here tonight. And I was kind of sitting like this, practicing my meditation, and suddenly I had a group of young Indians surround me, and they were saying, can you share us something about spirituality? They didn't even know me. And I was from the US, they're from India. So they all surrounded me and started asking me these questions. So we had a little mini satsang in this garage underneath the neon lights. They all happened to speak English too, which is pretty neat. That's pretty neat. They're probably in their 20s or so. So I just started sharing spiritual ideas, things that come from the ancient roots of India, the sages of India. I was sharing that with them. And finally I said, I think it's time to sleep, but that guy in the corner is smoking. So I stood up and I say, I'm kind of sensitive to smoke. Would you be willing to put your cigarette out? And he says, oh yes, of course. So he listened to me, and then I think they ended up turning off the lights. And throughout that night, it's probably by that time, about midnight, throughout that night, there was a blare of the sound of someone shouting in Hindi announcements. Who knows? I don't even know what it was announcing. Something. Hopefully something spiritual. I don't know, everything is God? I don't know. Something. So throughout the night, I kind of just stared up the ceiling. There was no way I was going to sleep. Maybe slightly dozed. And about 2:30 a.m., I opened my eyes. I said, it's time for me to leave this place. And the blaring is still going on the loudspeaker outside in Hindi. So I get up, I go outside, really cold, and I went to the bathroom there and then got in line. By then, there was already a long line. You're supposed to get some sort of ticket, like going to a movie theater or something. It's kind of strange. A ticket? I didn't really make much sense of that. So I got into line and there was this big bustling going on, and I felt like crushed in the line as they were pushing forward. And you know, we were just I was just trying to wait calmly to get my ticket. Well, finally, at about, I don't know, 3:30 a.m., I did get a ticket and then started walking up the mountain. And for miles upward, higher and higher. And I just remember one thing was really clear as I was walking. So these horses, or I would call them more like donkeys, large donkeys, were going up and down Kedarnath, kind of carrying people who couldn't walk it. You know, maybe they had a tough time walking, and there were these pilgrims that needed help. Because, you know, imagine walking 15 miles uphill. Some people can't do that. So they took these donkeys. Well, on the way up, there was a donkey prostrate on the ground, dead. And no, everyone was just kind of going up and down and not even paying attention to the poor donkey. So I just went up to the donkey and I sat and I prayed for the donkey. Kind of like practitioners pray for people who come up after them, you know. I became the donkey's practitioner. I prayed for the donkey. And here people were going up and down the mountain. No one paying attention. So after that, I kept onwards, and then it started to rain. I had a thin, what you call poncho on. That didn't do much good with the rain. And then it started to snow. And you know, my body gets pretty cold. And so by the time I got to the top of the mountain, I said, I'm ready to go back down. My body's so cold. But I got to see Shiva. So where's this temple? So I looked over, and there was this long line. It was miles and miles long, probably about three miles long. And I said, that can't be. This is the line. I went up to someone, is this the line to the temple? To Kedarnath temple? Yes, it is. So I said, there is no way I'm going to stand in line for 3 or 4 hours waiting in this freezing cold, shivering. So I decided, you know, might as well just go up to the front of the line and just take a look at the temple from the outside. So I got to the front of the line, and there was a guy who was kind of guiding people in and stuff. They had to take off their shoes to go into this holy temple. And I decided to talk to that guy. And he didn't speak much English, but he said, you know, I can't help you unless you have 2,400 rupees. If you have 2,400 rupees, I'll let you cut the front of the line.
Great.
So I had to bribe God. And I literally had only 60 rupees left by the time I got to the top of that mountain. Now, if you know how much rupees are worth, 60 rupees is about 90 cents. Not enough to get a meal, and I was hungry. So no money, no food, and desperately wanting to see Shiva. So I walked away kind of gloomy, a little bit gloomy, and I prayed to Shiva. Shiva, if you want me to come into this temple, I need your help now. I really want your darshan. Darshan is a holy meeting with a divine being, a darshan. I prayed. Otherwise, I'm going back down. My body is frozen, and I have no food or money. And by the way, I had left my backpack down at the bottom of the mountain, and had hired someone for about 250 rupees to store it while I went up to the top of the mountain. And I knew this, that I had run out of money, so I didn't even know if I was going to be able to get my backpack back. You know, this is called a pickle. So then the guy at the front of the line starts following me. I turn around, I say, oh, hi, and oh, namaste. He says, come with me. He says, I know you have no money, but come with me. So he brings me to the front of the line, and he said to the person at the front of the line, this man is going in front of you. He wants to get in. He's come all the way from America. It's a long way, right? Do you know how much effort it takes just to get to India?
Yeah, several days, isn't it?
Well, 18-hour flight, you know, with a couple, 2 or 3 stops. It's tough. Let alone to walk through India is brutal. I mean, if you'll know what I mean. It's like a different planet there. You'd have to go to really see. So he brought me to the front of the line and got me in. What a miracle. What a miracle. I was so surprised. And I came in and there was this pandemonium inside that temple. People were fighting to get to the Shiva Lingam. It's this big natural rock. That's why it's so famous, because it's a natural Shiva Lingam. Shiva Lingam, it's like a big stone. Wow, Shiva himself in this rock. It's a rock. And the energy was out of this world. The spiritual energy was like God himself dwelt there. So in spite of all the pandemonium, it just sent me into this state of being. I was overwhelmed by the energy. And then suddenly someone just rammed into me and threw me out of the line, and I hit the wall of the temple. I said, what just happened? Is that you, Shiva? So I muscled myself back into line and got my blessing, you know, from the Shiva Lingam. You know, the priest takes your head and he pushes you down to the rock. Fortunately, I didn't get some concussion or something. This is all real. This happens.
No, I believe it. I've been
happens.
to other kinds of pilgrimages where people get crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. In India, it's a wild place. It's a wild place, pretty clearly. So I got the blessing from the Shiva Lingam, and then I also connected to Nandi, who is the steed. If you've ever seen the bull, Shiva rides the bull. So I got the blessing, and then I got another blessing from another Shiva Lingam. And then finally, after going through this madness, I kind of sneaked into the corner of the temple and just stood there and basked in the meditation. And it was pure divine delight. I just made that up. You can use it. Divine delight. Sounds really good.
Yeah. There's actually a divinity candy called Divine
It was. And just sitting, and they didn't see me, you know. You weren't supposed to linger, but I lingered and just sat in the energy. And then after that, after 15 minutes of standing in that meditation, then I left. And I was content. And then I went straight back down. Not many people do it in one day, because it's such a long, imagine going like 15 miles up and 15 miles down, right? All in one day, 12 to 15, I can't remember exactly the number. Pretty much like doing a marathon in one day, because I wasn't going to stay up there, because the snow was coming down. So then as I was journeying back down the mountain, well, I got really hungry. What do? You have no money. You can't buy anything. Really hungry. So I just decided to sit in a little so-called shop that had a little tent, you know, maybe like a little tent. And I sat underneath this so-called tent. And I just looked longingly at the food. And then one Indian guy looked at me and had mercy. He says, can I help you? Would you like some food? And I said, oh, I ran out of all my rupees. I have nothing left. I would love that. So he bought me a plate of food. You know, this is when Shiva's working for you. Shiva's on your side. So I got the food and I sat underneath it and that must have been the most enjoyable meal I ever had. As the snow was coming down, shivering. But dal, rice and dal is what they usually eat. Rotis, this sort of bread. So I ate this and I said, oh, suddenly I had strength. I could go on. And I moved on. And this is the most amazing thing. As I'm walking down, I'm a fast walker. I also like to jog as well. So I'm walking down really fast. I'm making progress, quick. Sometimes I could be impatient. So I'm flying down that hill, passing all these people. Like, I'm gonna pass that one donkey right there. So I went on kind of like an edge of a cliff to pass this donkey. The donkey sees me and rams himself into me and pushes me off this cliff. And in that moment I thought, this is my death. Either that or my bones will be crushed. Looking down, and then another man with a donkey sees me falling, reaches over, grabs my coat, and pulls me back to safety. Barely saved. And then I continued back down and I thought, oh, what next? My backpack, I don't have enough money to even get my backpack back. You need 250 rupees. So when I got back down towards the bottom, I found the person who was holding it and I said, please, and I begged them, can I have my backpack? I don't have any money to compensate you. And the person also had mercy. Yes, you can have your backpack, it's yours, no problem. And then I continued on. And that was and there's many other stories to tell about that, but that was the story of visiting Shiva himself.